Break with Reality Part 14. Inching along, keeping as close to the bulkhead as possible, Keir tapped Dougal's shoulder. "Dougal, you sure this is the right way?" he whispered. Dougal sniffed air. Not exactly." "What are you doing?" Keir asked, screwing his face up. "Well, it's a galley, a kitchen, right? Right. So if we smell food, we'll be going in the right direction, right?" "Aye, see where you're at. So can you smell food?" "No, just keep going though." Lori looked at the two men, made a face and shook her head. They moved along the passageway and came across a metal door which protruded around 15 centimetres from the bulkhead. "Look," Dougal said, "this must be it." He signalled that Keir should pass him. "You try the handle, I'll cover you." As Keir slowly opened the door, a rush of misty vapour cascaded from within. It's only a freezer," Keir sighed. The door swung open fully, triggering an automatic light inside, and the mist cleared. "Holy fuck!" Keir jumped backward in shock at the revelation before them, very nearly knocking Dougal and Lori over. Just inside the freezer doorway, hands raised in a clawing motion, his sparkling frosted face contorted into a terrified grimace, was a frozen Gustav. Bloodstains on the tortured face looked like they had come from several lacerations across his blood-matted scalp. There were lesions across his chest, under gaping slits in his t-shirt, hacks on his arms, and he had 2 fingers missing from his right hand. The blood-soaked jeans dragged the eye to his bare feet, welded firmly to the icy floor. "Fucking hell, Keir. He looks like he's been trying to, get out." "No shit, Sherlock," said Keir before something else caught his attention. "Oh." He stepped back, allowing the other two to see better. Looking past the glaciated dead body stuck rigid to the floor to the other contents of the freezer, they could see, hanging up, swinging on a meat hook, the remains of a young woman. Lifeless eyes, surrounded by no longer running black eyeliner, were staring at them through a silver frost, frozen lips gaping in a perfect O. There was a chunk missing out the side of her neck, which looked as if a lumberjack had attempted to fell her as he would a tree, and to complete the horror, one whole leg was missing. "Fuck," Keir said in an exasperated whisper. "What the—" "Chloe?" said Lori, pushing her way past Dougal and Keir for a closer look. Fucking hell," she murmured, voice quivering. She staggered backwards, losing her balance a bit. Keir and Dougal grabbed and held on to her, preventing their startled friend from collapsing in shock. They pulled Lori farther away from the freezer, and Keir slammed the door shut. They stared at each other, aghast, uncomprehending. Dougal shook his head, face blanched at what they'd just witnessed. "Fuck, this gets weirder by the—" His voice trailed off. Keir stood, bent over, hands on his knees, taking deep breaths. He looked up at Lori. "Chloe?" "Aye," said Lori, tears welling up in her eyes. "A wee quine that worked alongside me a while. Just a young thing. I kinda took her under my wing, but I hadn't seen her in a month or so. She was always going on about leaving for somewhere bigger, like Glasgow or London even. So when she stopped turning up at the usual haunts, I kinda guessed that she'd packed up and went for it. Why the fuck did I nae phone her? I knew I should have phoned her." "Come here," said Keir, stepping over and putting his arms around Lori in a loose embrace. "You canna blame yourself," he whispered. "Fuck knows how she ended up here, but it wasn't your fault." "Listen." Dougal held a hand up to silence the other two. "What's that?" "What?" said Keir. They stood quietly for a few seconds, and all three heard it this time. The familiar uneven gait of Captain Leroux. He appeared from a doorway to the left, machete in hand, still stripped to the waist. Bulging, bloodshot eyes locked with theirs. "Ah, now," he breathed. "Oh, fuck this," Lori cried, releasing herself from Keir's embrace, throwing down her weapon and running back towards the stairs. Dougal and Keir glanced at each other, then at what they each had in their hands to defend themselves. "Nae sure these spears are up to it, pal," said Dougal, looking at his pathetic cane with its taped-on fork. "You're right," said Keir, tossing his makeshift sabre on the floor. "Let's go." Both turned and followed Lori, but not before Dougal picked up the 2 discarded weapons, reasoning that all 3 might work better, bundled together as one. Better to have them than not. Leroux raised himself to his full height, roared, face contorted in twisted rage, and launched his attack. Lori and Keir raced towards the top of the flight of stairs, Dougal following closely behind. He felt confident they could easily outrun the limping imposter when a sudden massive blow in the back of the head forced him to stumble and he collapsed face first onto the deck. Keir glanced back in time to see Dougal sprawling across the floor. "Lori!" he shouted, slamming the brakes on. "What?" she said. "Ah, fuck!" She about turned and the two of them rushed back to assist Dougal, lying between them and the rapidly approaching captain. Keir glanced at the machete on the floor at Dougal's side, which luckily had turned mid-flight and hit its target handle first. He dreaded to think what it might have been looking at if it had landed the way it had been intended. They reached their friend at the same time as the lumbering skipper, who lunged, arm outstretched to retrieve his weapon from the deck. Keir spotted this and sprang over, kicking it back along the passageway, where it came to rest a few metres behind the heavy-footed Leroux. Dougal moaned, woozy with the blow, and struggling to regain his feet. "Merde," growled Leroux, turning back to retrieve his trusty blade. "Come on, Dougal, up!" cried Lori, wrapping his left arm around her neck. She and Keir practically dragged their friend to the top of the staircase. "What about weapons?" moaned Dougal, trying in vain to look back for the spears he dropped, before convulsing and puking up in both himself and Lori. "Oh, Dougal, oh," said Lori, slapping her hand to her mouth and nose in an attempt to avoid the evil-smelling broth erupting from her half-conscious friend's mouth. She succeeded, only to slip on the vile substance as it splattered on the linoleum below them, then teeter at the brink of the staircase before falling in slow motion, arms flailing towards the deck below. Keir dropped Dougal's other arm, attempting to grab Lori as she tumbled down the narrow steps, but slipped in the spew as well, following Lori's arc down the stairs. Dougal was left kneeling at the top, regaining some form of consciousness after being sick. He looked in confusion at his friends clattering down to the next deck, then his attention was taken by the growls of the French fiend bearing down on him from the side, machete raised in the air above. Dougal's immediate thoughts were to get out of the way of the blade the captain was wielding and throw himself down the stairs after his friends, which he did, clattering down the metal-ribbed steps and landing on top of a struggling Keir at the bottom. Looking back up, Dougal saw the towering menace still at the top, just as he launched another attempt with a machete, which seared through the air towards him, blade first this time. Thinking his time was up, Dougal closed his eyes and waited for the missile to hit the target of his face, but it failed to happen. He heard only a clatter instead. Opening one eye, he saw the iridescent skipper roaring at the top, still defiant, not still at the top, while a defiant Lori stood over him, black sparkling satchel in both hands, having just deflected the machete from doing any real damage. "Fuck, I need to get one of them handbags," said Dougal, relieved at still having an unpunctured countenance. Lori winked at him. "I'll take you shopping after this." "Come on," said Keir, pointing at Leroux limping down the top steps. "He's near giving up." "Where to now?" asked Dougal. "Keep going down," said Keir. "We need to try and lose this bastard." They all struggled to their feet, then ran to the apex of the next staircase that would lead them further into the bowels of the ship, which they negotiated more carefully this time. At the bottom of that one, there was only one metal door, heavier than the others they'd come across. A sign was on it: "Engine Room." They just looked at each other. "Just go in," said Keir, waving his hand, with an apprehensive glance back at the stairs they just descended. "Surely we can find somewhere to hide in there." Dougal pushed down the large metal lever which clunked, allowing him to pull open the heavily insulated door. He struggled with it as there seemed to be a vacuum between the passageway and the room, attempting to suck the door closed again as if it wanted to keep its contents secret from the eyes of those trying to enter. All three friends pulled together, succeeding finally in swinging the lump of plate steel past the point of suction. Once in, they were confronted with the deafening roar of engines in the dimly lit machinery space. The heat was stifling and the stench of diesel and oil was almost overpowering. They ran across the greasy checker-plated floor and hid behind the big main engine in the middle. Keir stretched up and ventured a look over the scalding hot source of propulsion and noticed across the far side another room adjoining the one they were in. It had a large window that allowed a clear view across the whole engine space. In it, he could see piles of switches, buttons, gauges, lights, and Rocco. Behind the glass, the tubby engineer was sitting, arms crossed, in an old armchair, assumed in his familiar position of chin on chest, sleeping soundly. Keir sank back down again and hand signalled to the other two, pointing in the direction of the control room, inferring that they move around the main engine and go to Rocco's sanctuary. Dougal and Lori glanced at each other and nodded, not entirely sure what their friend meant, as communication in the dim, deafening situation was nigh on impossible, but they crept from their hiding place anyway, following Keir. Halfway between the engine and the control room, Lori looked across at the door they'd come in and saw the metal lever moving. She tapped both Keir and Dougal's shoulders, bringing their attention to what she was witnessing. The three of them darted behind another smaller auxiliary engine just as their pursuer made his entrance. The bloody captain limped in and stood in the middle of the engine room floor, machete in hand, looking around him with a twisted grin on his face, eyes darting this way and that, like a cat eagerly anticipating the appearance of a mouse it had been stalking. He stared across at the window of the control room, eyeing the sleeping Rocco, then started walking directly towards it. Just as he drew level with the hiding place of Keir, Dougal and Lori, something seemed to catch his eye across the other side of the engine room. He raised his arm and altered course, now heading in the opposite direction from where they were hidden. Keir, realising the opportunity, grabbed Lori's arm and the three of them ran round the engine towards the door they'd come in. Keir wrenched and shouldered the heavy metal door open and pushed Dougal and Lori through before going through himself and leaving it to slam shut. The cacophony was instantly cut, like someone turning down a stereo at a party when the police knock at the door. Dougal pulled the lever back to its closed position. "Up!" he shouted, and they ran back to the narrow staircase. They ascended the flight of stairs and emerged back on the survivor's deck. There, standing at the end of the passageway, meat cleaver in hand, was the ship's cook.